Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Football Podcast. It is me, Joey P. Joe Pizzapia. With me today is Scott Bogman, the host of our Dynasty Football Podcast here at Fantasy Pros every single week. Him and Pat Fitzmaurice giving you the best Dynasty content you'll ever find. We've also got Derek Brown, D-Bro, a.k.a. the King of Bros, who has been working the air fryer very much so in the last 24 hours, making some salmon there, a lot of other things. Very busy man. And of course, Matthew Freedman, who I don't know if he owns an air fryer or not, but I hope to find that out by the end of today's show. Gentlemen, we are here for our fifth mock draft, the definitive mock draft, the mock draft to end all mock drafts for at least the next few days. And we are going to go through these two rounds and try to give everybody the best opportunity we can to take a little look into what's out there for these teams potentially going forward in the future. We've heard the names before. We'll see who lands where. But gentlemen, I hope you are ready because we're going to start things off here with a bang. But before we do, I want to remind everybody we've got a giveaway thanks to our friends at Pristine Auction. Go to fantasypros.com/contest and you can get that Lamar jersey autographed. That's right, just for you. And all you got to do is subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/fantasypros. Subscribe, like the page, heck, like this video while you're watching it. In fact, you shouldn't even be listening. You should be watching and listening on our YouTube channel at Fantasy Pros, because when you do, then you can go to fantasypros.com/contest and you can get that autographed jersey. Again, that's at fantasypros.com/contest. And the YouTube is youtube.com/fantasypros. And of course, gentlemen, we're going to start things off with the Jacksonville Jaguars on the clock today. And Matthew Freedman, since this is your first mock draft with us of the season, you are on the clock.
All right, Joe, I'm a boring guy. I don't have an air fryer, and that's why I'm going with Aiden Hutchinson, edge defender from Michigan to the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's a chalky pick. He's the betting favorite. I could see it being Travon Walker or Evan Neal in my betting breakdown at Betting Pros. Smooth transition right there. I hope you guys appreciate it. And the betting breakdown I have at Betting Pros, I am recommending not betting on Aiden Hutchinson, just in terms of what's available in the betting market. But in terms of what is likeliest to happen, I think Hutchinson ends up going to the Jags. Relatively safe number one pick. Let's move on.
All right, moving on. And by the way, great pick. Terrible mistake by not having an air fryer. They're awesome and versatile. Next on the clock here for the second pick, we've got the Detroit Lions. D-Bro, you are on the clock for Detroit.
Well, I didn't know my food takes were going to make it on the show, but here we are. So I'll go with the delectable salmon of the quarterback class out of this year, and I'll take Malik Willis, quarterback out of Liberty, to the Detroit Lions. Look, they still got Jared Goff, got a year to sit him, let him learn. They could cut Jared Goff if they so choose to after this season and save some cash. So Malik Willis, head over to Detroit.
All right, a lot of fish in the sea and a lot of fish in the air fryer at the D-Bro house. But Malik Willis, the quarterback of choice, all the way up to number 2. It's amazing how Derek Brown, have you seen Malik Willis move up this chart here? And this is what we said was going to happen, right, Derek? As we get closer to the draft, these quarterbacks are going to get more and more enticing as we get closer. And look what's happening. Already Malik Willis, number 2 to the Lions. Woo, that is salty. Just like the fish. All right, Bogman, Houston Texans. That's it. We're done with the fish jokes now. Houston Texans are on the clock. Scott Bogman, you are up next. The Texans have a lot of needs, so where do you start?
They do have a lot of needs. This is one of the worst rosters in the NFL right now. It's going to be Evan Neal for me.
Clearly.
Makes me emotional. I get very well. You guys were talking about food, so my mouth started watering as the resident fat guy on this podcast. But look, with Charlie Heck as the starting right tackle, I'm going to go ahead and drop Evan Neal in here. They still have Laramie Tunsil on the other side, who is a very good left tackle. You can put Neal is versatile, so if they want to flip him over to left and move Tunsil to right, they can. And this is what you got to do when you have so many issues. You have to take a safe player at the top of the draft. Evan Neal is as safe as they come in this class. So let's go with Evan Neal and get that offensive line sorted out.
Safe and effective, just like Scott Bogman. Evan Neal, offensive tackle of Alabama, goes to the Houston Texans. That puts the Jets on the clock. Back to you, Matthew Freedman. Who are the Jets taking it for?
I'm going with Travon Walker, edge defender from Georgia. If you look at our odds page at Betting Pros, the markets have Travon Walker ahead of Kayvon Thibodeau. And with their 2 picks, I think the Jets go edge and wide receiver. They have at number 4 a chance to get a guy who, maybe could go number 1 overall in a different universe. So I will give them Walker, and then they can go wide receiver at number 10 or address another position.
All right, Travon Walker, edge rusher from Georgia, going to the Jets. That puts their stadium mates, the Giants, up next at number 5. Derek Brown, where do the Giants go for this 5th pick?
I mean, I'm going to go with the chalk pick. I mean, everybody's going with edge or offensive line because, look, it's big needs. So I'm going to give him one of the most talented players in this draft, has one of the highest ceilings. Give him Ike Ekwonu, offensive tackle out of NC State. He's a mauler in the run game, has some things on pass protection to clean up. But if he gets there, he could be the best tackle out of this entire class.
Ike Ekwonu, a big boy, big needs filled for the Giants, offensive tackle from NC State. That puts the Carolina Panthers up next with the 6th pick. Now, Scott Bogman, Malik Willis is not there. So what is a team to do?
I'm going to give him Kenny Pickett. And look, I think they're much better players on the board right here, right? But you take a look at their top 30 visits. They've visited Bailey Zappi, Desmond Ridder, Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis, Matt Corral, Sam Howell, and the only non-quarterback they've had a visit with is Rasheed Walker. So I'm thinking they may want a quarterback here, just based on what they're staring at in window shopping. So I think Kenny Pickett is number 2 in this class behind Malik Willis. So I will give him to the Carolina Panthers because Sam Darnold has failed there. They tried to go all the way back to Cam Newton and reverse the clock. It did not work. So they got to get somebody else in here to lead this team. And I think Pickett is the best option on the board.
Some private investigation by Scott Bogman gets Kenny Pickett, quarterback of Pittsburgh, to Carolina. Yes, go ahead.
It is hilarious that also that Bog snuck that in there. They actually had a top 30 visit with Bailey Zappi. What does that say about your scouting department? Just saying. Just throw that out there.
It says name. You may want other guys at pick 6 and maybe take Bailey Zappi in the 3rd round, you know.
Fair enough. All right, let's go back to Matthew Freedman here with the 7th pick. That's the Giants again for their 2nd in the last 2. So where do the Giants go next? They just have a Ekwonu. So where are you going next here for the Giants, Freedman?
Going to Mod Gardner, cornerback from Cincinnati. It's a chalky selection that makes sense. You know, we've got the 2 first-rounders for the Giants. I think it's likeliest that they go offensive tackle and cornerback. Gardner is the consensus top cornerback in the class, although you could make a case for Derek Stingley, especially after his pro day. But I think it's still Ahmad Gardner is the first cornerback in the class, and the Giants go offensive tackle at number 5. And so at number 7, they get Gardner to replace James Bradbury, who, you know, they're probably going to cut. It's a surprise that they haven't cut him at some point after June.
He might get traded during the draft too. So he's gone. He'll be off the roster.
So he's gone. They need a replacement, and Ahmad Gardner is as strong as they come at the position in this class.
All right, so Gardner, the cornerback from Cincinnati, going to the Giants. That puts the Atlanta Falcons on the clock. And Derek Brown, you're up next with the pick.
I'm going to stop the slide. Atlanta Falcons need, they need a lot of things, but they need pass rush. So I'm going to stop the slide for Kayvon Thibodeau, edge out of Oregon, and send him to Atlanta.
A controversial pick there.
They're desperate. They're desperate for edge rushers. They got nothing. Thibodeau is easily the best talent. I love that pick. I think it's
it makes a lot of sense. And they've got nothing to lose because they're already going to lose a ton of games. You might as well see if you can get the right pick and the right talent there and see if you can get him to play 4 quarters of football. We shall see. The 9th pick is up next, and that's now the Seattle Seahawks in a trade from Denver. That means you, Scott Bogman, are on the clock.
What do Stone Forsythe and Jake Curhan have in common, Joe? They are the starting tackles for the Seattle Seahawks, and you've never heard of them. Those are the 2 things that they have in common. So let's go ahead and give them Charles Cross, the big offensive tackle out of Mississippi State. Look, if you have a guy like Drew Lock who he can move a little bit, but it's not like he's a runner. Let's get some blocking for him. Rashad Penny finally started to show some flashes for the Seahawks last year. Get him a better blocker. Let's improve this offensive line. There's no franchise QB to pick here. So let's take the offensive lineman and start from the inside out and probably grab that QB in next year's draft class.
Charles Cross, offensive tackle from Mississippi State to the Seahawks. That means the Jets are up next at 10. Freedman, you're on the clock.
I'm going with Garrett Wilson, wide receiver, Ohio State, to the Jets at number 10. At number 4, they went with an edge rusher. They come back and get a wide receiver here. Wilson is the first wide receiver selected in the super majority, I'd say, of most sharp mocks that I've seen. And in the betting market, he and Drake London are neck and neck to be the first receiver. Arguably, the Jets, would fit better with Drake London instead of Garrett Wilson, given the other wide receivers that they have. But I just think Wilson is the better player. And they've signaled that this offseason, they really want to upgrade the wide receiver group. I think Wilson is a good addition here. I give him the edge over London.
All right, going back to number 1, the Jacksonville Jaguars selected Aiden Hutchinson, edge rusher from Michigan. Then the Detroit Lions select Malik Willis, quarterback from Liberty. Evan Neal, offensive tackle from Alabama to the Houston Texans. Then the Jets take Trayvon Walker, edge rusher from Georgia. Ike Ekwonu, offensive tackle from NC State to the Giants at 5. To the Panthers at 6, another quarterback, Kenny Pickett from Pittsburgh. Then Ahmad Sauce Gardner, cornerback from Cincinnati to the Giants at 7. The Atlanta Falcons get Kayvon Thibodeau on the fall. The edge rusher from Oregon, Charles Cross, offensive tackle, join some guys we don't know their name over on the offensive line of the Seahawks and Mississippi State. Then the Jets, Garrett Wilson, wide receiver from the Ohio State. That puts us up to the Washington Commanders, which still seems weird to say, but I'm getting more used to it. Derek Brown, who's going to be wearing a Commander uniform this year at the 11th pick.
They're the embezzlers.
Before I give my my Commanders pick, I got to say I like the pick that Freedman made for the Jets. After writing up Garrett Wilson, which his profile is live in the Dynasty Rookie Draft Kit, I love his yak ability. I think that he's going to fit perfectly in that offense. So the Commanders need some help on the back end. I've talked about McCain in previous mock drafts. You go check those out on YouTube. I think they need help at safety. I'm going to give them Kyle Hamilton, safety out of Notre Dame.
The consensus number 1 safety, Kyle Hamilton, certainly a good pick there. Safety from Notre Dame. That puts the Vikings up, certainly looking for some defensive help in the secondary too. Bogman, that's you.
Man, I was hoping Kyle Hamilton would fall for them because it's such a good pick there. Just safety is not a premium position. That's why Kyle Hamilton will fall in this draft, probably outside of the top 10. Maybe not. It only takes one team, but I think he will. But look, the Vikings, they need some help at corner. Cam Dantzler played very well last year. Patrick Peterson is on his way out of the league. I don't think Shandon Sullivan signing is going to stop them from taking a guy like Derek Stingley as one of the top corners in this class. He's a little bit... he was the number 1 guy, and then everyone got on Sauce, and now he's the number 2 or 3 guy. He's still a very, very talented corner, and I think he would be a great addition to this Vikings team. So I will go ahead and turn in the card for Derek Stingley to the Minnesota Vikings.
Strong pro day performance for Stingley as well, cornerback from LSU. That puts the Houston Texans up next. And Matthew Freedman, you are on the clock.
Yeah, I'm going with Jermaine Johnson, edge rusher from Florida State to the Texans at number 13. I think there's nice value in getting Johnson here at 13. His over-under is 9.5 in the prop market right now. And the Texans have so many needs. They could go in a lot of directions, but they do need help on the defensive line. And when you look at what they could do with their 3rd and 13th picks collectively, they could go offensive tackle and then edge rusher, and they probably can't get a high quality offensive tackle at pick number 13. So I think it makes sense here. They go offensive tackle at number 3, and then at 13, they still get an impact edge rusher in Jermaine Johnson. I really like the pick here.
Yeah, and a talent that's going up a lot of draft boards right now, Jermaine Johnson, edge rusher from Florida State to the Texans at 13. That puts the Baltimore Ravens up at 14. Derek Brown, where do they go?
So I'm going to throw a curveball here. Last time and a few of these mocks previously, I've given them a defensive tackle, but the re-signing since our last, the re-signing of Calais Campbell, I think gives them flexibility in this draft. So this might be a little bit high, but I think that they're going to address the offensive line. I'm going to give it Tyler Linderbaum, center out of Iowa. I mean, look, they lost Bradley Bozeman to the Panthers. I don't think they want to roll with their backup. And look, this is a team that's predicated on the run. And it's a big part of their offensive system. Give them Linderbaum.
Linderbaum, the center from Iowa. Yeah, it's hard not to.
Yeah,
Boggs, your thoughts on that?
They need some corners and stuff, right? They gave up a ton of passing yards last year, but they're going to return so much from injury. Mm-hmm. It's like getting draft picks back. So addressing that O-line, I think is going to be huge for them, especially a team that runs as much as they do.
All right, we're officially hitting the Eagles part of the draft here for the next couple picks pretty much. So it's Eagles and Saints going forward. No, just kidding. Just for the first few picks here. At number 15, let's start with the first of the Eagles picks here. Scott Bogman, you're on the clock.
Well, look, they need a wide receiver. Everybody knows that. But there's so many wide receivers. Garrett Wilson's the only one off the board right here. So even if a couple get picked before their next selection, I think it's time to address the defensive side of the ball. Let's go ahead and give them Andrew Booth, a big shutdown corner out of Clemson. You know, Zech McPherson was their pick out of Texas Tech last year late. They already have Slay. They have Maddox. But in this division with the Cowboys, we're going to see, the Giants have great wide receivers, and Washington is going to improve improve for sure, probably through this draft class at the receiver position. They need to get someone to cover. So Andrew Booth, a nice shutdown corner out of Clemson, going to Philly here.
All right, that puts the Saints up next at number 16, and that's Matthew Freedman. So you're up with the first Saints pick, Matt.
So this is interesting. The Saints have picks 16 and 19, and some people are thinking maybe they got this extra first rounder to try to leverage that into a quarterback. I'm skeptical, really. They brought back Jameis Winston and they signed Andy Dalton this offseason. They have a few holes on offense, and I think that they think they are good enough to where if they get some of those holes filled through the draft, they can compete right away in a weakened NFC. So I'm going with a wide receiver here. Offensive tackle is another position they need. Trevor Penning is on the board, but I cannot pass on Drake London, who should not be here. So Drake London, wide receiver, USC, number 16 to the New Orleans Saints. And again, his over-under is 10.5 in the prop market. He should not be here. So getting him at number 16 is nice. And that means they miss out on Trevor Penning at offensive tackle because the Chargers are next. There's a good chance they take him, but maybe they don't. And maybe Trevor Penning falls down the board and they're able to get him at 19. There's just too much value here in London not to take him at 16.
Drake London wasn't even supposed to be here today, but he gets selected at 16 by the New Orleans Saints wide receiver from USC. Go ahead, Box.
I just want to mention that last time we thought that the Saints were trading up to grab a quarterback was when they traded up. I can't even remember who it was in front of, maybe the Jets. We thought they were going to take Lamar Jackson, and they take Marcus Davenport. So not taking a quarterback is absolutely on the table here. And I mean, I think Freedman is absolutely right. They think they're set. They think they're good. So they will probably take a wide receiver here because it's their biggest need.
All right, Derek Brown, what's the Chargers' biggest need here at number 17 overall?
So count me in the contingent that thinks that the Saints possibly go up for Malik Willis. I just want to put that out into space before I throw another curveball in this draft. And I think the Chargers, yes, they could address tackle. I'm going to keep them adding to whatever is a really good skill for a team. Why don't you just make it elite? Give them Jamison Williams, wide receiver out of Alabama, and let's just light the league on fire.
I thought Erickson was taking the day off.
No, I'm here in his stead.
Sorry.
Oh, well, I've heard Jamison Williams rumblings all the way up as high to the Jets over here in this New York area. There's been a lot of those.
If he wasn't hurt, he would probably be the number one.
Good. A lot of people that just say the ACL is just not a big deal to teams anymore. They see it as an injury that happens and you miss time and then you're just as good as new again. So it's going to be fascinating to see where Williams ends up. That's the wide receiver from Alabama. In this draft, he ends up at 17 to the Chargers. That puts the Eagles back on the clock and Scott Bogman at 18. So is this where they go wide receiver?
This is where you go wide receiver, and Treylon Burks is my number one wide receiver on the board. And kind of the thunder to the lightning that Devontae Smith would be in this offense. I love Treylon Burks. Doesn't run fantastic routes. That's probably the big knock. But, Jalen Hurts isn't always on time anyway. So I think a nice improv type of offense is going to fit perfectly for Treylon Burks. They use him a lot like Deebo Samuel at Arkansas as well. We know that the Eagles running back situation is a little fluid here as well, so he'll get plays in the backfield. He'll play on reverses and a ton of short yardage throws to him and let him get some yak from Jalen Hurts. I would love this move for fantasy as well. So I am a big fan of Treylon Burks and would love to see him land in Philly here.
Arkansas wide receiver Treylon Burks to the Philadelphia Eagles at 18. That puts the Saints back on the clock here again for Matthew Freedman, and your guy still on the board.
Yeah, this is a no-brainer. I'm running up with the draft card and turning it in immediately for Trevor Penning, offensive tackle from Northern Iowa to the Saints at 19. They get very lucky here. Trevor Penning falls to them. He can slot in right away at left tackle to replace Teron Armstead, and they still get, if not the best wide receiver in the class with Drake London at number 16, one of the top 2 or 3 wide receivers. So this falls perfectly for the Saints at number 19.
I love Trevor Penning. He's got that extra little edge about him. Plays to the whistle sometimes after it. I got to say, I'm a big fan of Trevor Penning, offensive tackle, Northern Iowa to the Saints. That puts the Pittsburgh Steelers up next. And Debro, you are on the clock.
Steelers are a hard mess to sit here and figure out what they want to do in the draft. I mean, I think obviously we think that they're in a market for a quarterback. I'm going to give them Desmond Ridder, quarterback out of Cincinnati. I went that direction last time. I still think that it makes a lot of sense on a number of levels. One, the need. Two, with his mobility, again, Canada can craft an offense that not only fits Trubisky, but Ridder's strengths as well. So yeah, give him Desmond Ridder.
All right, Desmond Ridder, quarterback from Cincinnati. So already immediately we're going to have a little bit of competition there potentially at the quarterback position. So things are getting dicey for your Steelers already, Scott Bogman. Let's get to the New England Patriots at number 21. Bogman, you are up next.
Hey, look, I think this is the only pick that no one yelled at me about online. So let's just do it again and give the New England Patriots Devin Lloyd. I think that, look, we have Bentley here who's pretty good. Mac Wilson, I don't know if Mac Wilson's going to cut it. Give me a guy with some size. I think Belichick's going to love this dude. He could be the play caller very early in his NFL career, meaning he has the communicator helmet, the green dot helmet. I just would love to see him in New England. I think he fits perfect. So, just fill a need with a great player. I think it's a good spot.
Next in a long line of middle linebackers for the New England Patriots, Devin Lloyd hopefully goes to the Pats from Utah. That puts the Green Bay Packers up next at 22. Matthew Freedman, you are on the clock.
All right. The Packers, like other teams in the first round, have 2 picks here. So it's interesting to think about what they do at 22 versus number 28. I'm going to go with Chris Olave, wide receiver from Ohio State, to the Packers at 22. This is a very popular pick for them to make with wide receiver. And then with the second pick, they can address a number of positions after that. I think edge is a need, and George Karlaftis is on the board. His over-under is 16.5, so I think there would have been value in grabbing him now. But Chris Olave is also on the board, and he's the last of the tier of 5 wide receivers at the top of the board. So I think there's good value in getting him at this place. And I mean, this is the pick for wide receivers that you just see across the entire industry of mock drafts. Number 22 reserved for a wide receiver for the Packers. I will be chalky and give it to him right here.
All right, let's recap the picks. Starting at 11, the Washington Commanders, Kyle Hamilton, safety of Notre Dame. Then we have the Minnesota Vikings taking Derek Stingley, cornerback from LSU. Jermaine Johnson, edge rusher from Florida State, to the Houston Texans at 13. At 14, the Baltimore Ravens selecting Tyler Linderbaum, center from Iowa. Andrew Booth, cornerback from Clemson, goes to the Eagles at 15. Then the Saints at 16 take Drake London, wide receiver from USC. And we've got to run, boys and girls, because next the Chargers take a wide receiver, Jamison Williams from Alabama. Then Traylon Burks, wide receiver from Arkansas, goes to the Philadelphia Eagles. New Orleans selects Trevor Penning, offensive tackle from Northern Iowa. Then the Steelers take Desmond Ridder, quarterback from Cincinnati. The New England Patriots select Devin Lloyd, linebacker from Utah, and Chris Olave, wide receiver from The Ohio State, to the Packers at 22, and that will put the Arizona Cardinals officially on the clock. And Derek Brown, the pick is yours.
I'm going to give him a big boy to plug the middle. Give him Devontae Wyatt, defensive tackle out of Georgia. They lost Corey Peters, and Zach Allen is the unrestricted free agent after the 2022 season, so I think it makes a lot of sense to fill a need.
Devontae Wyatt, defensive tackle from Georgia, another one from that vaunted Georgia defense that won the national championship. Not so bad. A lot of Georgia talent out there. The Dallas Cowboys are up next with pick number 24. Bogman, you are up for the pick.
So mad. Devontae Wyatt won one pick ahead of the Cowboys. I think that would be such a good pick for them. I would also love to see him go to Pittsburgh at number 20 as well, as I'm a Steelers fan. But this one was kind of tough. And, Cowboys fans aren't picky at all, so it's kind of just throw whoever in here, right? But I'm going to give him to Kobe Dean, the linebacker out of Georgia. And I think the reason this fits is because, yes, you did draft Parsons, and he was outstanding last season. But Leighton Vander Esch is long in the tooth. He's not going to last that much longer. And I think if you have a guy like Nakobe Dean playing middle linebacker for them, a guy with high energy, unbelievable motor, a guy that inspires his teammates, you're going to have two solid linebackers there, and that allows Micah Parsons to move around wherever you want him. You can put him on the edge, you can put him in the middle, you can drop him back a little bit as well. So if you have two outstanding talents at that spot, it frees up Micah Parsons to do what he can do on any play. So give me Nakobe Dean, the linebacker out of Georgia, to drop in for Dallas and make Parsons a little more flexible.
Back-to-back Georgia boys. Now we've got Nakobe Dean, linebacker from Georgia, going to the Cowboys. That puts the Buffalo Bills up next. Matthew Freedman, you going offense or defense here?
Let's make it a three-peat of Georgia defenders. I'm going Jordan Davis, defensive tackle out of Georgia, to the Buffalo Bills at number 25. And, it's interesting. There are a few players in this class who are kind of hard to slot in. I think Jordan Davis is one of those guys. Nakobe Dean, another one of those guys. And Devontae Wyatt is one of those guys. And part of it is because, defensive tackle isn't a big position of need for most teams. It's not highly prioritized. And you could say the same thing with off-ball linebacker. But, man, Jordan Davis, he's just an athletic marvel. He's a near lock for round one. I don't say near lock. He's a lock for round one, but it's hard to know where to put him. His over under is 13.5 in as a draft prop. Like he slid really far. We're at 25 now, but the Bills, they don't really need a defensive tackle. They have Ed Oliver, they have Daquan Jones, but Jordan Davis gives them another body to throw into the rotation. And the value is just too much to ignore in this exercise. I have to go with Jordan Davis to the Bills. And I'm just thrilled that he fell this far. Arguably too far. Maybe he should have gone ahead of Devontae Wyatt. I'm not going to second guess what Debro did there 2 picks ahead, but I'm just thrilled that he fell to number 25 to the Bills.
All right, so Jordan Davis, defensive tackle from Georgia, completes the Georgia run. Debro, after that passive-aggressive toss from Matthew Freedman, now the Tennessee Titans are up next for the 26th pick overall. Where are you going?
So I'm going to give them the easy pick here. Losing Roger Saffold to the Buffalo Bills, I'm going to give them a new guard in Zion Johnson out of Boston College. Look, about the defensive tackle pick, I like the over as well for Jordan Davis because the 13 line seems a little bit spicy right here. Maybe he fell a little bit too far, but I like Wyatt's game overall too.
All right, so Zion Johnson, guard from Boston College, up as Bogman and the Bucks on the clock for pick number 27.
Oh, the Bucks are so hard to pick for because they've got everything, right? You get Tom Brady back, you get Bruce Arians out of there. I can't imagine a better scenario for a team. So there's not a lot to pick. So this is kind of a tough pick. I'm going to give him Trent McDuffie, the corner out of Washington. Reason being, look, last season you had a lot of corners get hurt. Jamel Dean actually played pretty well. They re-signed Carlton Davis. They still have Sean Murphy-Bunting, but remember in the first game, Sean Murphy-Bunting broke his elbow, had to have surgery, missed a bunch of time, came back and played terribly. I believe in PFF he was like 90 out of 116 corners. So not very good. Let's give him a little competition. Let's bring in Trent McDuffie. McDuffie can play the slot. He can play outside. And Sean Murphy-Bunting is a free agent after this season, so it's an easy replacement as well. Give him Trent McDuffie out of Washington. Debro, you look very upset.
I'm very, very upset because if this happens, then I'm not going to be able to pick on Murphy-Bunting and DFS on a weekly basis. So this makes me really upset.
Fair enough. All right.
There'll be plenty of rookie corners to pick on in IDP.
That's
so
fair. That's
no
just
worries.
follow wherever Eli Apple ends. You could always just go there too. The Packers are up next at number 28, and that means you, Freedman. So where are we going here with the Pack?
Well, I'm looking at George Karlaftis, edge defender out of Purdue. Arguably they could have taken him at number 22. So the Packers get lucky that he falls to them at number 28. Instead they went with Olave at number 22. The move pays off, but he gives them a power rusher off of the edge. Karlaftis has 3 years of starting experience, first team, all Big Ten. Fantastic value pick to get him here because he also, I think, like Jordan Davis, is a near lock for round one. And thinking about Jordan Davis versus Devontae Wyatt, I mean, why would you take the most athletic guy to enter the NFL in the past 20 years when you could just take a defensive tackle? So
the unbelievably athletic defensive tackle, though. I mean, I almost took Karlaftis like 6 times. So I don't believe he'll fall this far. I think someone will pull the trigger on him before we did. But this is a great pick. I love Karlaftis. And the Ryan Kerrigan comp is just too easy for him.
All right, everything continues to come up Millhouse for Matthew Freedman. He gets everything he wants. George Karlaftis, edge rusher for Purdue, to the Packers at 28. That puts the Kansas City Chiefs up for back-to-back picks. The first one is in the hands of you, Derek Brown.
I'm just going to have some fun with this pick. I'm going to give them my guy out of North Dakota State. Give him Christian Watson, wide receiver, who a lot of people talk about how raw he is. I still contend Christian Watson is what people want Treylon Burks to be. He's an athletic alien. They could use him in the run game. We've seen that. And the rough parts of his game and the step up in competition, he's not going to be thrust into the starting lineup immediately from week 1. So, but next year, sky's the limit, man. Love this pick. Although I made it, so a little bit biased.
Well, I hope so. I mean, if you are making it, I hope you like this pick.
I got to say, I will be curious at the end of this draft to go back and see how many of these guys were Senior Bowl participants, because there might be some sort of like, hey, I saw this guy in person type of bias going on here.
Maybe not. Yeah, I know a certain friend of ours was at the Senior Bowl. Schmoozing. This is what happens.
I've never seen Debro's face so red before.
That's funny. That's funny. I get called for a lot of things. Senior Bowl bias is a new one. I'll take the title.
Hashtag Senior Bowl bias. All right, Kansas City Chiefs are up next for Scott Bogman. Where do they go with their second in 2 picks?
I think this is a pick I got yelled at the most for in the last mock.
Bogman,
and
you're not getting yelled at, you're not doing.
You're not. Well, I mean, then you're not mock drafting if you're not getting yelled at.
Well,
it's funny
yeah,
to me. I don't care at all. Trust me.
Okay.
I'm not making a statement here, Joe. I do not care. Yell at me all you want. But Boye Mafe is a really, really talented. He's a little bit raw, but he's a very, very talented pass rusher. And look, you look at the list of the pass rushers for the Kansas City Chiefs right now. It's Frank Clark, who hasn't played a full season in I don't know how long. Alex Okafor, who's 31. Shalik Calhoun, who's not good, and 30. Then you have some, dart throws. Mike Dana is okay. I don't know who Jonathan Woodward is. Herring is okay. But they need someone to come in on those 3rd and longs and get after the quarterback's backside. And I think Boye Mafe is one of those guys. He's raw. He's not going to play all 3 downs. They're not going to ask him to play in a lot of pass coverage and all that stuff. He is going to come in and be there to pin his ears back and get after that QB, which is exactly what they need in Kansas City. That's why they gave up the lead to Buffalo in that game. So I think that this would be a fantastic pick for the Kansas City Chiefs, and I'm sticking to my guns, Joey.
So the Chiefs take an edge rusher from Minnesota, Boye Mafe, and Christian Watson, wide receiver from North Dakota State, with their picks. That puts the Bengals up at 31, and Matthew Freedman's on the clock.
I think it's hard to know what to do with the Bengals. They could go in a lot of different directions, in part because they don't have any one glaringly obvious need. But I'm going to go with Kenyon Green, guard from Texas A&M, to the Bengals at number 31. Ideally, Tyler Linderbaum would drop in the draft, and maybe they'd be able to take him at center, because if you look at their rebuilt offensive line, center is the one really clear need that they have. L. Collins at right tackle, Alex Kappa at right guard, Ted Karras at left guard, if they get a center in there. But the thing is, Karras has played center before. He started there in 2019, 2020. So I'm still going that angle of getting an interior lineman. They can put Kenyon Green at guard and move Karras back to center. And that gives them a very solidified offensive line to protect Joe Burrow. So that is where I'm going, Kenyon Green to the Cincinnati Bengals.
A guard from Texas A&M, Kenyon Green to the Bengals at 31. Close out the first round at 32. The Detroit Lions are up next. Derek Brown.
I like the pick of Kenyon Green at guard. I keep mocking to the Cincinnati Bengals either the interior lineman or a corner, because we've already made one Eli Apple joke in this show. So yeah, we'll go back there.
I've got a bunch more here prepared.
Before you rattle off any more, Joe,
okay.
I'll get the Lions pick in here. Give him Arnold Ebiketie, edge out of Penn State, who's been getting a lot of steam lately. You check out a lot of different mocks. He's getting into the back end of the first round, and for good reason. You look at the guy, he was 29th in pressures last year, and he had a higher win rate on his rushes than even Kayvon Thibodeau. He was 19th in this metric per PFF. So at this point, you get the 5th-year option, and they definitely need pressure, because bottom of the league, despite a top 10 blitzing rate last year. Yeah, Ebiketie makes a lot of sense.
All right, let's recap to close out this first round. We have the Arizona Cardinals taking Devontae Wyatt, defensive tackle from Georgia. Then from Georgia, Nakobe Dean, linebacker, to the Cowboys. Then from Georgia, Jordan Davis, defensive tackle for the Buffalo Bills at 25. Then Tennessee Titans take someone not from Georgia, Boston College's guard Zion Johnson. Then Trent McDuffie, cornerback from Washington, goes to the Buccaneers. The Packers at 28 take George Karlaftis, edge rusher from Purdue. North Dakota State wide receiver standout Christian Watson to the Kansas City Chiefs at 29, who follow that up with Boye Mafe, the edge at 30 with from Minnesota. Then you have the Cincinnati Bengals at 31, taking Kenyon Green, guard from Texas A&M, followed by Arnold Ebiketie, edge rusher from Penn State to the Detroit Lions. That closes out round 1 and kicks us off with round 2. And the Jacksonville Jaguars are up with the 33rd pick overall. Scott Bogman, start round 2.
The Jaguars have a lot of needs here, right? That is why they're picking number 1 overall. I love the Hutchinson pick. Let's keep adding onto that defense because they already spent way too much money on the offense already. Let's go with Daxton Hill, the versatile safety out of Michigan. This dude will be able to play wherever, most likely free safety. Let's drop Wingard into strong safety. Rayshawn Jenkins was rough last year, to say the least. 53rd out of 93 coverage grade. Pass rush grade was okay. Run defense was awful, but Daxton Hill is going to give this team a lot of speed, which is exactly what they need. So let's go ahead and go with Daxton Hill from Michigan to the Jaguars.
All right, the safety goes to the Jaguars. Now the Detroit Lions up again at 34. Matthew Freedman, you're on the clock.
I like that last pick by Bogman. If he wouldn't have taken Daxton Hill there, I definitely would have taken him at the second pick here of the second round. Instead, I will go with George Pickens, the wide receiver out of Georgia. The Lions have a lot of needs. They went quarterback at number 2, edge rusher at number 32. Now with Pickens, they get a wide receiver, hopefully to pair with their rookie quarterback long term. Pickens is, I think, more of a home run swing kind of selection. There's a wide range of outcomes with him, but he was a star in his true freshman season. He battled injuries after that, but he's got great athleticism, and I think he's a good complement to Amon-Ra St. Brown and DJ Chark. So this might be a little bit early for Pickens, but the buzz around him is starting to build, and I think he's going to go early on day 2. I think a good stylistic fit with the wide receivers that the Lions have.
Well, Bogman will tell you, I don't think it's too early for George Pickens at all. I'm a big fan. Wide receiver from Georgia going 34, and you're right, the compliment he provides there to Amon-Ra could be very good for the Lions offense. That puts the Jets up with the 35th overall pick, and Derek Brown, you're up next.
I think they're going to address the defense a little bit more. I'm going to give them cornerback Kaiir Elam out of Florida as... Look, they signed DJ Reed. I think they can address their starting cornerback unit. Pair Elam on the other side. He can press. He can play zone. Last year, he had a knee injury he dealt with. That was the first season he had allowed a completion rate over 43.5%. So if he would have been fully healthy last year, and he easily could still go in the first round. So the Jets are happy to get him here at the top of the second.
All right, so there you go. Kaiir Elam, the cornerback from Florida, goes to the Jets at 35. And once again, the Giants are up right after them for 36. And that's Scott Bogman. You're up.
Look, we gave them Sauce Gardner in the first round, and we talked about James Bradbury not going to be on this roster by the time the draft is over. He will either be traded or cut. I'm going to give him Kyler Gordon here. We're going to turn that weakness from the New York Giants into a strength. I don't think Darnay Holmes will be able to keep Gordon off the field. And I think if you put Sauce on one side, you've got a Dory Jackson on the other, and you're playing Gordon in the slot. This secondary with the safeties of McKinney and Love is going to be very, very strong. So let's take that weakness, turn it into a strength, and try to play matchup with these Cowboys and all their good wide receivers, and try to get something out of the NFC East, because you can take it right now. It's up for grabs. So got to get good on the defensive side, though.
Yeah, so you're remaking the secondary for the Giants, and in this draft, you gave the Eagles Treylon Burks, don't forget, too, so that's another guy
that's right.
You have to worry about along with Devontae Smith. So the cornerback from Washington, Kyler Gordon, goes to the Giants. That puts the Houston Texans up at 37. Matthew Freedman, where do the Texans go next?
I just want to say I like that pick by Bogman, and it's interesting. It recalls kind of what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did a few years ago when they took 2 cornerbacks in the second round to really try to rebuild their defense. So an interesting move there. At 37 with the Texans, I'm going Jahan Dotson, wide receiver from Penn State. The Texans have needs all over the roster. They went offensive tackle and then edge in round 1. After Brandon Cooks, they have Nico Collins, Chris Conley, a wide receiver. Those guys are like the living embodiment of the double Spider-Man meme, right? They just, they're the same guy and they both suck. They need more options at wide receiver. Dotson is a potential first rounder. He can line up inside, outside. I like him going to the Texans at 37.
That speed is going to take safeties and linebackers a step or two back too, which is going to make those sucky guys a lot better because they'll have one-on-one coverage that's a step back maybe. So I think he's a perfect complement to what they have on the roster. It's a great pick.
That's a wide receiver, Jahan Dotson from Penn State going to the Texans. That puts the Jets up next at 38. Derek Brown, you're up on the clock.
Robert Saleh is licking his chops and rebuilding this defense one pick at a time. I'm going to give them Travis Jones, defensive tackle out of Connecticut, and keep adding to the trenches. And the other thing, having the foresight for this team too, Sheldon Rank is an unrestricted free agent after this year. Quinnen Williams, if they don't pick up his fifth-year option, he could be gone too. But you're looking at, they save some money, get Travis Jones in there. Maybe they just let Rankins walk and pair those two to plug the middle.
All right, there you have it. So another pick here for the New York Jets, Travis Jones, the defensive tackle from Connecticut. That puts Scott Bogman back up at 39 for the Chicago Bears, making their first pick so far in the 2022 draft. Bogman, where are they going?
And I know every Bears fan wants a wide receiver, but I think with Jahan Dotson going, it's going to, put a hole in those plans here. So I'm going to give them Bernard Ryman, the big offensive tackle outside of Central Michigan, currently on the roster. You have Tevin Jenkins, who could play left tackle. I mean, he's slated to be the left tackle according to PFF right now. He was a second-round pick last year. He only played about just over 150 snaps last year, so he is very inexperienced. But on the other side, you have Larry Borum, fifth round pick out of Missouri from last season. I think you at least need some depth, some competition for those guys on the offensive line. And if anyone remembers Justin Fields' first hit that he took in the NFL, he was nearly decapitated. So let's get some offensive tackles to keep this dude on his feet. And there's plenty of wide receivers that are going to be available later in the draft, later in this round. So I think the Bears would be good to take a tackle here.
Yeah, he took a lot of hits in that first game. Offensive tackle from Central Michigan, Bernard Ryman, going to the Bears. That puts the Seattle Seahawks up again at 40. Matthew Freedman, what's next for the Seahawks?
All right, I'm going with quarterback Matt Corral from Ole Miss. The Seahawks, I think, are likely to acquire a veteran quarterback somehow during the draft, before the draft. But even if they do, they could still take a quarterback on day two. And Matt Corral, he's a little Russell Wilson-ish, just kind of like he's a smaller quarterback who has good passing ability and mobility. The main concerns with him are size, but he has multiple years of good SEC production. If he were 3 inches taller, I think he'd be the number one quarterback in this class. And getting him in round two provides good value relative to his upside. And the Seahawks need a quarterback after going with the tackle in round one.
If I was 3 inches taller, I'd be 5'10". Matt Corral, quarterback from Ole Miss, going to the Seattle Seahawks, but Seattle's up again, back-to-back picks here. Derek Brown, the Seahawks are going to be able to really remake their roster here. So what do you think is the best pick on the board for them?
Well, to Freeman's point here, they just re-signed Geno Smith to a 1-year deal. So I think that pads and allows Corral to sit if they want him to, or at least they're going to have competition in camp. For Seattle here, I think they're going to take a player that would not be here without the injury and take the discount because they desperately need pass rush. So give them David Ojabo, edge out of Michigan.
David Ojabo,
great pick talent for them. Great pick for them. That would be fantastic.
Why?
Well, look, they got nobody right now as far in terms of edge rushers. They're probably going to be picking up high again next season, but you need that quarterback. You need him. So, I think that getting an edge rusher here would be fantastic for them because right now, Jamal Adams is still their best pass rusher, and the dude's a D-back. So I don't understand what they're doing there. They got to address it.
It's a good point. All right, that puts the Indianapolis Colts up next at the 42nd pick overall. Scott Bogman, where are you going to put the Colts? What are you going to put for them next?
Finally, I get to make a fun pick here. My first fun pick since Treylon Burks. I'm going to give them Sky Moore, the talented wide receiver, fast wide receiver out of West Michigan. And look, you put him on the other side of Michael Pittman. And look, you hit him with a couple big plays early. I think in the season, you have Matt Ryan throw deep to him that starts to move in a lot of games too. You at least take a shot deep because it's going to keep those safeties honest. And if you can move guys back in the box with JT as your lead runner, you are winning. I think this is a fantastic pick for the Colts. I would love to see Sky Moore fall here. I think he's a perfect complement to go on the other side of Pittman as well. So I would be drooling in terms of fantasy if Sky Moore ended up in Indianapolis.
Love this pick for them. They could certainly use some help at wide receiver, and he had a great combine too. He was very impressive. Sky Moore, the wide receiver from Western Michigan. Just to recap, so far in the second round at 33, the Jacksonville Jaguars take safety Daxton Hill from Michigan. Then Georgia wide receiver George Pickens goes to the Detroit Lions. The Jets at 35 take Kyer Elam, cornerback from Florida. Kyler Gordon, the cornerback from Washington, goes to the Giants. The Texans take Jahan Dotson, wide receiver from Penn State at 37. Then the Jets at 38 take Travis Jones, defensive tackle from Connecticut. Bernard Ryman, offensive tackle from Central Michigan, goes to the Bears at 39. Seattle at 40 and 41 selects Matt Corral, quarterback from Ole Miss. Then David Ajabo, edge rusher from Michigan. Scott Bogman takes Sky Moore for the Indianapolis Colts, the wide receiver from Western Michigan, which brings us to the Atlanta Falcons, who have a lot of needs. So Matthew Freedman, what need next for the Atlanta Falcons?
You know, if not for Sky Moore going right before this pick, I maybe would have gone there, but he's not available. So I'm going quarterback Sam Howell from North Carolina. I feel a little bit dirty doing this, but gross. You know, just like the Seahawks a few picks ago, the Falcons need a long-term quarterback because Marcus Mariota is almost certainly not the guy. The Falcons are in a rebuild, but that doesn't mean they can't draft a quarterback on day two, just like the Texans did last year with Davis Mills, and maybe they can see if he can develop. Before the last college football season, Howell was one of the top quarterbacks in the class, and he didn't have a bad year. He takes a lot of sacks, but maybe that can be coached out of him, especially with the play action heavy offense that the Falcons use. So I think you draft Howell. If it doesn't work out, the Falcons can still take a quarterback next year in round one. We're going in the way back time machine, but it's similar to what the Panthers did years ago with Jimmy Clausen, taking him in round two. That doesn't work out. You take Cam Newton number one the next year. Similar situation here with Sam Howell.
With the Atlanta Falcons offensive line being so bad and Sam Howell taking so many sacks in college, should he be like taking out some sort of insurance policy on himself or something like that?
Yeah, sitting on the bench. Okay. That's the
insurance policy. Yeah.
So Marcus Mariota is the insurance policy.
I think this pick fits even if they do acquire Baker Mayfield some way too, because Baker Mayfield is very much playing for his next contract wherever he lands. So I think, and Sam Howell, very, very similar to Baker Mayfield in my opinion. So I think this fits regardless. Let's get three guys in there and see which one is the best versus just absolutely rolling with Mariota. So I like that pick.
Well, you know what they say, when you have three quarterbacks, you have none. All right. Cleveland Browns are up next. Speaking of Baker Mayfield at 44, Derek Brown, who are you going to take for the Browns here at 44?
I would love to give them a wide receiver, but there's nobody left on the board that makes sense right now. So I'm just going to go back to D tackle, give him to Marvin Leal out of Texas A&M. With a Malik Jackson and Malik McDowell gone, Leal makes a lot of sense. He was 28th in run stops last year. And he can get after the passer, too. He's versatile enough to do that. So he can be a good little chess piece for the defensive line.
All right, DeMarvin Leal, defensive tackle, Texas A&M, goes to the Cleveland Browns. Then the Baltimore Ravens are up with the 45th pick. Scott Bogman, you're on the clock.
Look, the Ravens can go a bunch of different ways here because this is another team that is fairly complete and already the favorites to win the North. Even though the Bengals were just in the Super Bowl, the Steelers were just in the playoffs. The Ravens are the favorites. So this is a very good team. I want to give them a linebacker here because Queen and Harrison both grade out so terribly, but I just don't think they're done with those guys yet. So I don't think this is a linebacker pick. I already mentioned, I think in terms of the secondary, I think they're going to get better just by getting guys back from injury. So let's add to this pass rush. They're going to get some leads. They're going to be able to sit on them. So let's add to the pass rush and give them Drake Jackson, the edge rusher out of USC. Drop him in there with the likes of Jason Oweh and Tyus Bowser and Justin Houston. Some of those guys, particularly Houston, is getting a little bit older. Tyus Bowser probably just okay. They tried with Jalen Ferguson a couple years ago. He hasn't worked out either. So let's get another guy that can put some pressure on opposing QBs, especially in a division with some good QBs here, with like Mitchell Trubisky, right? And Deshaun Watson. And no, Trubisky's not in there. Are we not mentioning him? No one.
Well, I don't know. It could be Desmond Ritter by the time it's all said and done.
No truth here.
This draft is going.
Better not be Desmond Ritter. I will flip this table over.
I could see you with all of your rage keeping it inside, not flipping the table over during that pick. All right, next is the Minnesota Vikings at 46, and Matthew Freedman, you're up with the pick.
All right, well, Bogman mentioned in the first round how ideally they would like to get a safety. Kyle Hamilton wasn't available, and they can get a safety here. So I'm going with Lewis Cine, the safety out of Georgia, to the Vikings at number 46. I mean, what is there to say? He was a producer in the Georgia defense. He's got good athleticism. I think he's going to pair very nicely with Harrison Smith. I think it's a nice value pick that meets a need here.
Lewis Cine, safety from Georgia. The Georgia's defense continues to bear fruit in this draft. The 47th pick, the Washington Commanders are up next. Derek Brown, you're on the clock.
Feel like all I've been doing is drafting defensive players for people this entire time. Well, I'm not going to change it up now. With Washington going Kyle Hamilton, the first pick, I'm going to give them Christian Harris, linebacker out of Alabama. I understand they added Jamin Davis, but this linebacking core is terrible. And Harris makes a lot of sense. He's a versatile guy. He might not have one like true trump card, but he could pressure. He could play in coverage. I think he makes a lot of sense just to upgrade this unit because it's pretty bad.
Christian Harris, linebacker from Alabama. Derek Brown stays on brand. Look, this is a fun draft, especially for those IDP nerds. Bogman and I are loving this draft, by the way. I just want to point that out there. Chicago is up next with the 48th pick they acquired from the Chargers. So Bogman, want to take another defensive player? Come on, let's get crazy.
Yes, I am. Look, I really want to take a wide receiver here, but the wide receivers are, they're kind of faltering. I mean, I know Debro and I love Jalen Tolbert, but this is a bit early for him, I think, still. And look, when we look at this Bears depth chart here, the corners are Jalen Johnson, who's pretty solid, a middling corner. Then you have Tavon Young. I don't need to say anything about him, do I? And Kendall Vildor. So it is ugly here in the secondary for Chicago. So I'm going to go ahead with Roger McCreary, the corner out of Auburn, add some speed to this defense, a much better coverage corner than the current guys on the roster as well. Even as a rookie, will easily beat out these guys. So let's go with McCreary to the Bears to improve that defense a little bit.
All right, the corner from Auburn goes to the Chicago Bears. That puts the Saints on the clock next at 49. Matthew Freedman.
I'm going with safety Jaquan Brisker out of Penn State to the Saints. They've got a good defense, but Marcus Williams and Malcolm Jenkins are both gone. They're starting safeties from last year. They have Marcus May, who should be able to step in and replace Williams, but they still need another guy to replace Jenkins. And I think Brisker could be a good candidate for that. He's likely to go in round 2, so this fits the draft range. I think it's a good, solid pick here for the Saints.
Penn State safety Jaquan Brisker to the Saints. That puts the Kansas City Chiefs up for the 50th pick. Derek Brown.
I love that pick by Freeman because as a Saints fan, I don't want to watch Sorensen on the field. I don't want to see that. So staying with remaking defenses for the Chiefs, I'm going to give him a speedy cornerback, Tariq Woolen, cornerback out of UTSA, who honestly, we still haven't seen his ceiling possibly. We know about the game-changing speed, but it's a guy that didn't start playing corner until 2019 after he flamed out on the offensive side of the ball. So I think he's got range. I think he's got size, and we know the speed. So definitely an upgrade for Kansas City.
All right, Tariq Woolen, corner from UTSA to the Chiefs at 50. That puts the Eagles back up again at 51. Scott Bogman.
Yeah, I don't know how I got all of Philly's picks, but I love it. So
it's quite a feat considering how many there are, too.
Yeah, it is. It is. So I'm going to go ahead and let's go with the interior of the defensive line. I know they're pretty set here. They've got Cox and Hargrave to fill this spot, but they are both guys that could be gone next year. I know that they would save a lot of cap if they cut Hargrave after this season. Fletcher Cox is a unrestricted free agent after this year. So let's give them Perry and Winfrey, the big defensive tackle out of Oklahoma. He has drawn some Darnell Dockett comps as well, a guy that can absolutely harass quarterbacks and running backs in the backfield. So let's go ahead and give them Perry and Winfrey, probably a rotational guy in year one, but will be a stalwart in that defense moving forward after this year.
The defensive tackle from Oklahoma, Perry and Winfrey, goes to the Eagles. That puts the Pittsburgh Steelers up at 52. Matthew Freedman.
To the Steelers, I'm going with offensive tackle Tyler Smith out of Tulsa. I'll just say, objectively speaking, the Steelers have a bad offensive line. That's just one man's opinion. They took
Every
Desmond
man's
Ridder.
opinion.
Yeah. That's true. That's accurate. They took Desmond Ridder in round 1, so they need to give him more protection. Tyler Smith has fallen down the draft board. I think he's got a real shot to go in round 1. I'd say, maybe even the Packers at the end of round 1, but getting him in the middle of round 2 is outstanding value. I think he's going to be a week 1 starter for this team. And with the pick, the Steelers can start to rebuild their offensive line, which really needs it. So I like this pick here.
Tulsa tackle Tyler Smith. You like that? That was the alliteration you were searching for earlier, Friedman. Pittsburgh 52. Let's recap a little bit. Let's go to Sam Howell, the quarterback from North Carolina, at 43, going to the Atlanta Falcons. And at 44, the Cleveland Browns, taking DeMarvin Leal, defensive tackle from Texas A&M. Drake Jackson, edge rusher from USC, goes to the Ravens at 45. To the Vikings at 46, Lewis Seen, the safety from Georgia. Christian Harris, the linebacker from Alabama, then goes to Washington at 47. To the Bears at 48, Roger McCreary, cornerback from Auburn. Then the Saints at 49 take safety Jaquan Brisker from Penn State. Tariq Woolen, corner from UTSA, heads to Kansas City at 50. Then the Eagles at 51 take Perry and Winfrey, defensive tackle from Oklahoma. Tulsa tackle Tyler Smith goes to Pittsburgh, which puts the Green Bay Packers up next on the board for 53. And Derek Brown is on the clock.
Well, the Packers front office is big mad right now. Watching Tyler Smith go off the board right in front of them. I'm going to take a route similar to what the Steelers did last year and going with not necessarily an offensive lineman, but somebody that can help in the blocking game. When they took Pat Freiermuth, Packers are going to take the same kind of route. They're going to go Trey McBride, tight end out of Colorado State, who is not only a good pass catcher, we know the pass catching needs there, but he can also help out in the run game.
Finally, Derek Brown
love this pick.
Gets a fun pick, a fantasy pick for Derek Brown. See, you waited all the way to 53 and you finally got one. All right. And look, it is a great pick there. Boggs, what are your thoughts on Trey McBride here to Green Bay? You seem to like this one a lot. It's a good fit, right?
Taken so many tight ends that haven't worked out. The DeGuara and whoever else it was a couple of years ago just didn't work out. And the Packers seem to do this. They seem to draft guys in bunches. A bunch of wide receivers one year, a bunch of tight ends the next year. But I think Trey McBride would be a great fit and give Aaron Rodgers another target because obviously they need them after trading Devontae Adams. So I think this fits perfectly, and I would love it in terms of fantasy. Probably sink my Tunyon shares, which I have a couple of, but who cares? Let's get Trey McBride on the field.
Well, he and Mercedes Lewis are both unrestricted free agents, so Tunyon's probably gone anyway. But I like McBride. I think he's going to be a great target over the middle for Rodgers.
All right, the New England Patriots up next at the 54th pick. That's Scott Bogman.
All right, let's go with the defensive side of the ball again, because this is what the Patriots do. They sit and they just take the best player that falls to them. In fact, they'll probably move back from this spot like 3 or 4 times and pick up 6 extra draft picks in next year's draft because that's what they do. But Cameron Thomas, the edge rusher out of San Diego State, I think would fit perfectly on this team. The Patriots aren't hurting at edge rushers. They have Judon, they have Henry Anderson, they have Uche, who are all good. Uche is a free agent after 2024. Henry Anderson's a free agent after this season. They have Wise locked up and Judon locked up for a little bit, but they're getting a little long in the tooth. I just think the other guys here in Perkins and Jennings just haven't really worked out for them. Still time to develop them, but I think you grab Cameron Thomas, you drop him in. Guy can help against the run. He can help against the pass as well. I think he is a 3-down guy that can drop in and play immediately for this team.
All right, that puts the Arizona Cardinals up next at 55. Matthew Freedman.
All right, guys. Some men just want to watch the world burn. Like one thing, like we're drafting a lot of these teams based on need. And that makes sense. But what that means is that some guys are falling down the board. And I think one guy who is falling down the board here is Breece Hall. So I am taking him, running back Breece Hall, Iowa State, to the Arizona Cardinals at number 59. This is a Cliff Kingsbury pick. Hall is my top running back in the class. Great athleticism, 3-down skill set. He's gotten a little round one hype. In fact, NFL's Lance Zierlein slated Hall to the Cardinals in round one of his most recent mock. So I think I'm, giving them a favor by getting them Breece Hall, but doing it in the second round. The Cardinals have no proven running back after James Conner, who turns 27 in May. And at pick number 55, I think Hall represents some pretty good value. He's a splashy pick made by a coach who wants to be a splashy guy. I like it. I couldn't help myself.
Well, we had to wait 54 picks before we got a running back. So I think the fantasy analyst in you, too, was probably going a little insane. And rightfully so. And why not? If anyone's going to watch the world burn or light on fire, it's probably Cliff Kingsbury. That goes next. So Breece Hall, the running back from Iowa State, goes to the Cardinals. That puts the Dallas Cowboys up next at 56. Derek Brown, you're up again.
Jerry Jones is so mad. He would love to draft another running back and pay him all the money. I'm just going to throw that out there. I'm going to take the guard out of Georgia, Jamarie Salyer, to fill a need. I'm going to go back to the needs here. Losing their Connor Williams in the offseason, it just makes sense here.
This is a guy that can swing, too, for them. He can play tackle. He can play guard. He can be very versatile on this offensive lineman in case of injury. So I think that's an excellent pick.
All right, so let's go next to Buffalo Bills at 57. Scott Bogman, you're on the clock.
All right, sorry about your boring ass pick, D-Bro. I'm going to go with Kenny Walker. Come on, let's get some running backs going here. Let's put the dagger in Devin Singletary. I'm sick and tired of it. Let's get Walker on a team. Look, he would be fantastic in Buffalo. It would be great to see him here. They're going to score a ton of points. It could be a goal line back. He can run in the fourth quarter when they're up. This is an absolute dream scenario to land for this running back. So let's go with Kenneth Walker out of Michigan State to the Buffalo Bills. I would love to see this happen.
Flying up draft boards as we speak if this happens. Atlanta Falcons up next at 58. Matthew Freedman, you're on the clock.
All right, guys, another watch the world burn kind of pick right here. Johnny Mechie, wide receiver out of Alabama, going to the Falcons at number 58. Arguably, the Falcons should have taken a wide receiver with their first pick in round 2. I mean, they really need to address the position, but I went with quarterback Sam Howell there. But, I mean, they need someone, and I'm going with Mechie. I think if not for his knee injury, he might have been a first rounder. He was a 4-star recruit, true junior, was likely to blaze at the combine. He was the number 2 receiver for Alabama as a sophomore. And then as a junior, he played behind Jamison Williams. But yeah, Williams is awesome. And Mechie still had 1,150 yards in 13 games. I'm saying that basically he's a slower Henry Ruggs, and the Falcons get him in round 2 because of the injury discount. I think it's a pretty decent pick, even though it might not be a popular pick.
It's so good a pick. I'm actually mad that Scott Bogman didn't take him at 54 for my Patriots. So I just want to put that out there, Bogman.
They don't draft wide receivers. They tried to draft Harry and it didn't work.
I know, but just because you did it once wrong doesn't mean you never do it again. I mean, geez. Let's go next.
Are you going to tell Bill Belichick that? I don't know.
I think Bill disagrees.
Well, we can talk to him. He and I will chat later. I'll text him. All right, let's go to 59. The Green Bay Packers are up next. Derek Brown, you're up for the Green Bay Packers.
I'm going to give them linebacker Quay Walker out of Georgia. You team him with Devondre Campbell and Rashawn Gary, and this defense gets scarier. 3-down linebacker. He can blitz. He can cover. Take a strength and make it elite.
Quay Walker, Georgia linebacker. Is there like a total Georgia picks in the first 2 rounds that we could bet on? Because I'd love to bet on that. Whatever it is, I want the over.
Over under 50? Too much?
What's
too much? He didn't say Alabama. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. All right. Tampa Bay Buccaneers are up at number 60. Scott Bogman, you're up for the pick.
All right, got all the excitement out with my last pick, so let's go with a boring pick here. Let's go with Logan Hall, the big defensive tackle out of Houston. I just think, when you're looking at Tampa Bay, once again, a team without a ton of needs here, but the interior of the defensive line is absolutely one of the bigger needs on this team right here. Obviously, you have Vita Vea, who's great. Golston is fine, but after that, it's guys like Steve McClendon, just a bunch of guys that even I haven't heard of. So let's go ahead and give them some size up the gut to help those pass rushers. And, that linebacker core needs someone to eat up some space. I think Logan Hall can be that guy.
All right, Logan Hall, defensive tackle from Houston to the Bucks. That puts the Niners up for a pick, their first here in the draft, from Matthew Freedman at 61.
All right. This pick, this one might be the most outrageous. I'm going with Wan'Dale Robinson, wide receiver out of Kentucky, to the San Francisco 49ers at 61. Maybe they could have gone with safety Jalen Petrie to replace Jaquiski Tart. That would have been the reasonable pick, the justifiable pick. But Kyle Shanahan is not a guy who does what's logical in some instances, right? This guy drafts offense basically every chance he gets. After Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, they don't have really anyone at wide receiver. So there's a need at the position. And Samuel is entering a contract year. He wants to be paid like a star. Robinson has a little bit of Deebo to his game. Last year, Kentucky, he had 1,300 yards receiving on 100 catches. He also had 100 yards rushing. And then 2 years before that at Nebraska, he was a hybrid running back wide receiver. So he's a movable chess piece kind of player that Shanahan has shown an affinity for in the past. This is a little bit of a reach, but Robinson probably goes on day 2, and the 49ers reach on skill position players anytime they have the opportunity to do so. So Wan'Dale Robinson, this feels like a 49ers kind of pick.
Just imagine if Lynn Bowden was good. That's what you would get out of Wan'Dale Robinson.
Okay. Wan'Dale Robinson, Kentucky wide receiver. If Lynn Bowden was good, that's the draft note next to him. All right. Kansas City Chiefs are up next at 62. Derek Brown, you're up.
With the Wan'Dale pick, all that means is that they're a shoe-in to re-sign Deebo. They're going to draft another wide receiver in the 6th round, and they're going to start him over Wan'Dale Robinson. But anyway, let's keep it moving.
It's not running backs here, D-Bro. Come on.
Just saying, man. That's how the San Francisco 49ers roll. But heading back over to the Chiefs, again, I'm going to go with a not fun pick. Remake this defense. I'm going to give them Fedarian Mathis, defensive tackle out of Alabama, to plug the middle. And the way that this look, Freeman's going with the set the world on fire picks. I'm going with more needs here. Chris Jones, they can get out of his contract as soon as next season. They could save $20 million against the cap. And so if they're looking to save a little bit of cash as well as to continue to bulk this defense back up, Mathis makes a lot of sense.
All right, Fedarian Mathis, defensive tackle from Alabama to the Chiefs. That puts the Cincinnati Bengals up at 63 and Scott Bogman.
I mean, not a lot of weaknesses for Cincinnati outside of maybe Eli Apple left on the board, but I want some athleticism at the linebacker spot if I'm a Bengals fan. It's been a rotation of Pratt, who is just underperforming. Logan Wilson is okay, but let's go with another Wyoming linebacker. Let's go with Chad Muma out of Wyoming. Relative athletic score of 9.79, 4.6, 340, just very, very fast. Great size at 6'3", 239, elite level bench, elite level 40-inch vertical, 10-foot, 9-inch broad jump. Just the numbers leap off. Plus, he is a tackling machine, and that is what you're going to need if you're Cincinnati, especially if you're sitting on leads. You just need guys to make stops. And I'd love to see someone finally make stops that is draftable in IDP leagues for this team. So let's go with Chad Muma, the linebacker out of Wyoming.
All right, relatively athletic Matthew Freedman, you're up next with 64. Denver closes out strong here for the second round.
If I took a wide receiver right now,
no,
you guys would lose. No, I can't do
no,
that.
I
can't do that.
No way.
Yeah, I will go to the Broncos. Offensive tackle, Nicholas Petit-Frere, Ohio State. The Broncos, Russell Wilson now at quarterback. They need to protect him. Petit-Frere is likely to go in the middle of day 2. They signed Billy Turner to a 1-year deal that is up to $5 million, but I think that just means he's a high-quality, versatile backup. If he doesn't start at right tackle, and arguably he shouldn't be starting at right tackle. So I think Petit-Frere is probably an upgrade over Turner, and the Broncos could use an extra body on the offensive line, almost regardless of where and how he fits in. So that is where I'm going.
The Green Bay Packers at 53 selected tight end from Colorado State, Trey McBride. The New England Patriots then selected Cameron Thomas at 54, the edge rusher from San Diego State. At 55, fun pick, Breece Hall, running back from Iowa State to Arizona. Then at 56, the Dallas Cowboys take Jamiri Saylor, guard from Georgia. Then Buffalo, Scott Bogman selected Kenneth Walker, another running back. Boy, 2 running backs. How lucky are we in 2 rounds? Michigan State running back goes to Buffalo. Atlanta Falcons, Matthew Freedman selected John Mechie, who called him Johnny, so I guess they're close. Wide receiver from Alabama. Green Bay selected at 59, Quay Walker, linebacker from Georgia. Then Logan Hall, defensive tackle from Houston, went to Tampa. The San Francisco 49ers took Wan'Dale Robinson, wide receiver from Kentucky. Then Alabama defensive tackle Fedarian Mathis goes to the Kansas City Chiefs. That's a steal there at 62. And then at 63, the Cincinnati Bengals select Chad Muma, linebacker from Wyoming. And then Ohio State's offensive tackle Nicholas Petit-Frere goes to the Denver Broncos at 64. And that, my friends, is how you run a mock draft for 2 rounds. We hope you enjoyed it. And I want to encourage everybody to make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/FantasyPros, because we will have live NFL draft coverage of the actual draft picks. That's right, not the theoretical ones, the real ones live. So make sure you subscribe, and I hope you like this video as well. We appreciate that. We appreciate you also clicking that little bell for the notifications, so you know every time a piece of glorious content drops. And when you do, you just might win some free stuff, just like a Lamar Jackson autographed jersey, perchance. That's right. At fantasypros.com/contest, you can win that thanks to our friends at Pristine Auction. We're giving that away, and all you have to do to enter is be a subscriber of our YouTube channel. It's just that simple. Gentlemen, you're stunning, you're brave, you're fantastic. What a beautiful 2 rounds of mock draft gloriousness this was. Scott Bogman, Matthew Freedman, Derek Brown all did tremendous work. We hope you enjoyed it. And of course, I can't wait to read all of your YouTube comments about all the mistakes they all made. That'll do it for us, but the story of the game goes on. I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.
Thanks for tuning in to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. Don't forget to check out our featured videos. And while you're at it, make sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Fantasy Pros, so you can get the latest news and updates to give you the edge you need in your fantasy league.